If we can't motivate our legislature to come back now, when we're seeing the growing support for a ban on offshore drilling, when we saw the president pass a moratorium, when we have the governor and so many people on board to ban it, when? If we can't do it now, when can we do it?
Well, we think it would be, the best thing would be if the Florida legislature in special session would place a constitutional amendment prohibiting oil drilling in Florida waters before the voters this November. If they're unable to do that for whatever reason, then the Florida Wildlife Federation and our allies in the conservation community and the affected business community that depend on our coastal economy will do a petition drive. Unfortunately, we won't be able to do that until 2012. It would make a lot more sense. It'd save a lot of time and energy, but we'll do it if we have to, if the legislature would do it now in special session. This disaster in the Gulf is also an opportunity for America to wake up and start moving towards a cleaner, more efficient energy future.
And that would take a huge awakening, as Mike mentioned. Since the 70s, these things have been going on, and you have to look at what that takes. Comes to alternative forms of energy, it takes a lot of these oil companies who have a lot of influence in our government stepping back and maybe helping to create something that goes against their own.
Well, they could take advantage of the new economy too. They could use their resources to promote and invest in solar, and they're doing some of that, and algae production. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities. They could position themselves to be leaders in the new energy economy as well. They certainly have a lot of resources, and they will do that. The question is, when will they do it? We'd like them to do it sooner rather than later.
Do you think a ban would push that message forward with those companies if the people spoke up and they voted for a ban?
I think a ban in state waters, in Florida waters, sends a message. Sends a strong message beyond Florida's borders. But we think that one of the things that we're going to need too, I haven't mentioned this before, is we need whatever comes out of this disaster in terms of settlement of claims, and there will be a lot of litigation. It's great that the president, magnificent that the president was able to get that $20 billion put in escrow in response to this. But we're going to need a national, Gulf-wide, and state restoration fund, and that as part of we believe, as part of responding to the damages of this disaster, there's going to need to be a lot of money spent to restore those marshes in coastal Louisiana, and it may get over into our mangrove swamps. It could spread and get into Florida waters. We're already seeing it in the beaches, and it's going to spread into the bays of West Florida, and it could end up in other parts of the state. And we're going to need an environmental restoration fund that should come out of this, perhaps a trust fund, sort of like the tobacco trust funds of years ago. We may need an environmental fund for Florida and for the Gulf states in response to this disaster of whatever ultimately comes out of the solution, the legal settlements that are going to come from the Gulf disaster.
Because there's going to be damages that are going to be hard to weigh in a monetary sense of that. A lot of us, it's out of sight, it's out of mind.
Well, the one thing that your viewers should think about is there's all the scenes of the pelicans and the horrendous human cost of those poor 11 people that were killed in the explosion. Say nothing about that. The personal economic consequences, the ecological implications of this are much greater than what we saw, what we're seeing. That's only the faintest tip of the iceberg. The pelicans and the birds that you're seeing, or the dead dolphins, or the dead sea turtles. It's affecting the entire food chain, from the zooplankton to the plankton, all the way to the largest mammals, the sperm whales. It's affecting everything, the plants, the animals, the whole ecosystem. And so there's a lot of damage that's occurring that will never be documented, that it won't be the frozen carcasses that you see that the Fish and Wildlife Service is collecting. That's only a minute fraction of what's occurring in the Gulf ecosystem.
Joining me now, Manley Fuller from the Florida Wildlife Federation. Manley, you are the man behind the idea of banning oil drilling in Florida waters.
We would like to see a prohibition of oil drilling in Florida waters placed in the state's constitution.
Now, there is already a ban in statute. Why go to the drill?
Well, we have experienced 2 years of the legislature talking about drilling as close as 3 miles to the Florida coast. We need to eliminate that possibility and place that in the Florida Constitution.
Why do that? Why do we need to do that?
Well, it would mean that we would not, in waters that Florida has direct control of, we would not taking an action which would place our risk and our ecosystem place our economy and our ecosystem at risk.
All right, so you've got the governor on your side, but you've got Dean Cannon and Mike Karadopoulos who say we're not going to do that, at least in the legislative process. If you can't get it through the legislature for this November, what happens?
We will begin a petition campaign to place it on the ballot for 2012, but we think it makes a lot more sense to do it in 2010. And the legislature has until August the 4th to do that.
All right, one of the videos I've seen that you've sent to some of your supporters out there, you're actually calling for an end to our dependence on oil as the ultimate objective.
We need to take this national disaster in the Gulf. America needs a new, cleaner, more efficient energy future.
How do you do that?
Well, one thing we do is we pass comprehensive climate and energy legislation in Washington, and we also have companion legislation or legislation at the Florida legislature and states across the United States.
Well, you know, this legislature has balked the governor's plans for the RPS standards of 20% by 2020.
We think the legislature needs to re-examine their positions and to do the right thing.
And this seems to be the right time to do that.
We believe it is. We think that, and that may lead the incoming Speaker and the incoming Senate President to reconsider their positions on not supporting a constitutional prohibition of oil drilling in Florida waters.
And indeed, Mike Karadopoulos has called an energy summit in Central Florida in July.
And Representative Vasalinda is calling for one this coming Monday and Tuesday here in Tallahassee.
So do both of those help you?
We think that they both are useful forums to bring forward support for things like the renewable portfolio standard, efficiency. We need to be encouraging. We need a new energy future for Florida and the United States.
But you know, we've been talking about this since the mid-'70s, and gas prices keep going down. Oil is down this past week, and people have a very short memory.
Well, that's true, but I think this disaster is a real wake-up call. People ought to realize that we need to transition to a cleaner energy future for the world for a lot of reasons. And also there's going to be new economic opportunities. America needs to be well positioned to take advantage of clean energy technologies and efficiencies.